Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to another official track gameplay in MX Simulator, where today we're going to be playing the 2018 Indiana National, the Ironman National I should call it, in MX Simulator. And you'll notice as I'm playing right now that there's already some little bit of wear and tear on the track. That's because I've been putting in a couple laps here to start the video, or before I started the video I should say, to lay down some lines and make the track a little bit rougher. I know it's not quite the mud fest that we had in real life this past weekend, but still get an idea of how the track can wear and tear a little bit. I have a road on 5, and I've done maybe 10 laps or so to this point, so you can see where it's worn down already and where it will wear down continuing on going forward. But yeah, Ironman National, last round of the season has come and gone. It is now behind us, and the championship is over in real life. But before I get there, just want to give a shout out to the whole MXS, EMF, and Race Factory Gaming, I guess they're the same, but track crew for building all 12 nationals all season long, and of course Supercross as well, putting all the tracks together. They did a really good job working with everybody to make a road a semi-enjoyable experience. I know that some people still aren't on board with road racing in MX Simulator, where you have track deformation during these online races. But all in all, I think it produced pretty good racing throughout the season. Of course, I didn't actually race any of them, but broadcasting them, it made some pretty fun races, and it produced maybe the best race I've ever seen in MX Simulator this past week in the Indiana National, which you can watch the broadcast for that on our YouTube channel right now. Really good stuff, would recommend. But yeah, big shout out to those guys. They did a great job all year long, and yeah, excited for the off season, I should say. nice time for a little bit of a break. Streaming has definitely been fun this year for me, but it's nice to have a little couple weeks off here maybe before some other things happen. But yeah, let's talk about some real life nationals. The Indiana National this past weekend. Of course, the 450 class was kind of the big breadwinner of everybody's discussions, because the 250 class had already wrapped up with Plessinger winning it at Budds Creek the week before. And I'll touch on the 250 class more or less at the end of the video, but wanted to spend a lot of the time talking about the 450 class, which had a championship battle going down to the line between Eli Tomac and Marvin Musquin. Coming into the Indiana National, there was 20 points between Tomac and Musquin, with of course Tomac having the points lead. Basically what needed to happen was Tomac just needed to cruise home to, I think it was a 7-7 or better overall on the day, and no matter what Marvin did, Tomac would win the championship. And yeah, I mean, all day long it started off as a complete mutter in the morning. It had rained all night the night before, and then it just got pretty gnarly during the day with the qualifying practices and stuff. And 250 class kind of got screwed too, because 250B practice was the first group to hit the track at all, and obviously that, you know, sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's not for those guys, because they got a completely smooth track. And yeah, there was puddles and, you know, freestanding water sitting everywhere on the track, but they still ran much better lap times than the 250A riders did. And so 30 of the top 40 qualifiers came from the B practice, and that meant that several factory riders that were not in the top 10 in points didn't make the motos on the top 10 provisionals. So kind of sucked for some of those guys, but kudos to those B guys for laying it down when it was gnarly. And of course a lot of Indiana locals that race the GNCC at Ironman itself probably know that track, that dirt, and how it gets when it rains there. So it's not like they just lucked into getting good qualifying times. They still had to actually beat all of their, you know, practice mate times. And yeah, I thought that was pretty cool to see so many guys up front. I did not pick a single one of them in fantasy though, because if I'm honest, I don't expect a privateer bike to last a 30-minute plus 2-lap moto in the rain. Usually expect those things to blow up, but took the bullet and didn't get massive points for my fantasy team this week, just because I didn't want to have the the shame of a privateer running 16th and his bike blowing up, which honestly not too many of those occasions even happened this weekend. But anyway, back to 450s. Musquin needed to win, really. I mean, like, there's no two bones about it. DNF out of Tomac would maybe set up a interesting scenario where, you know, Marvin maybe doesn't even have to win a moto, but he could still win the title depending on what Tomac did the second moto or whatever moto he didn't DNF. But it was kind of all, you know, a moot point once the motos got underway, because Tomac just kind of rode calm and collected the first moto. Marvin could not catch and pass Justin Barcia, and they just kind of all stayed there. I think Tomac ended up second. So Tomac was the one that couldn't catch Barcia, and Musquin got like a bad start and just couldn't go forward. It took him a long time, and he eventually caught and passed Nicoletti late in the race that kept the championship alive, but it only made it so that Tomac needed to score 1 point at all in the last moto. And Marvin just, on a day that, again, like, he kind of needed to rise to the occasion, he kind of just looked off. And I know that he had talked about having a kind of bad practice crash before Budds Creek, and maybe that was affecting him, or I don't know what it was, but he just overall didn't seem comfortable. Whereas at Unadilla, he was, you know, by far the best rider on the track in the second moto, and by far the second best rider on the track in the first moto, and that was just not the case in either moto at Indiana. So Tomac ends up finishing ahead of him in the first moto, sets up a really good scenario for him in the second moto, and yeah, just pretty much just cruised it home. Ended up in 9th behind Reed, so he goes 2-9, or 3-9 actually, 2-9, my bad, for whatever it was, 5th overall or so, and wraps up his second title. Big congratulations to Tomac, another 450 outdoor title in the books. And I felt like this year, although you know, he still only beat Marvin by, in the end it was 16 points or so, pretty similar to last year where he only beat Marvin by 17. You know, the numbers don't really show, again, how dominant Tomac was. You eliminate that DNF at Redbud from the mechanical failure, and then the subsequent disaster moto that followed after having an outside gate pick and getting a bad start and crashing 4 times. You eliminate that weekend and just give him a 1-1, and this title was wrapped up a week ago. So, you know, he was clearly the best rider all outdoor season long, and what I felt like he's kind of learned this year, and it seemed like he had learned last year, but then Supercross kind of imploded in his face again, is how to manage, you know, everything. I still don't really feel like going into Supercross he's like 100% my title favorite next year, just because of the weird kind of brain farty type things that he seems to do in Supercross still. But outdoors, it seems like he's kind of got it all figured out. I would say there's maybe 2 motos all year that I was like, is that Eli Tomac riding that bike right now? Are we sure? Like, are we sure Mike Williamson didn't throw his gear on and start riding for him? Like, what the heck is going on out there? Whereas in Supercross, it seems to happen more often. But either way, like I said, it was still a top-notch season for Tomac. Clearly the best rider, you know, again, deserves the championship. And, you know, for our sake, I hope he carries the momentum from this championship into some good weeks off, followed by some good training weeks, and then, you know, does the deed at Motocross the Nations. I don't really care if he wins the motos at the Motocross the Nations, so long as Team USA wins the race. But yeah, I'm sure Tomac is probably a little bit fired up about this whole Hurlings versus Tomac discussion that just seems never ending going on. And now that he's got the title to, you know, wrapped up, I think he's going to put all of his focus into shutting everybody up at Redbud if he can. But we'll see. Either way, still a good year overall. Great year again for Marvin. Can't discount him at all. He ends up scoring the most points overall over the whole season, Supercross and Motocross, of anybody else in the United States. He ended up beating Tomac for the Grand National Championship by 13 points. So, I mean, you can't say Marvin had a bad year. He won 25% of the races he entered. Was, right at the sharp end of the field pretty much every race he was in. I think that going into next year, again, you still stamp him as a title contender, maybe not a title favorite, but a guy that is going to take it down to the wire with this kind of consistency that he seems to carry through. And I look for him to kind of continue the rivalry with Tomac, and I don't think that unfortunately, he's been having a pretty tough year with the fans and all that, but I think all in all, this is a year that Marvin shouldn't really hang his head too low on. I mean, to win as many races as he ended up winning and be in contention all the way through in Supercross and Motocross, really nothing to sneeze over. And I think everybody that finished in the top 5 outdoors really has something positive to think about. Barcia ends up 4th overall in the championship, wins the last round of the series, comes from being a complete privateer 9-10 months ago to being on a factory bike, signing a multi-year contract, racing for the United States at Motocross of Nations, and picking up his first national win in 3 years. Like that's a huge check mark for Barcia to add to what has been an incredible year so far for him to come back from almost nothing. I mean, he was going to be riding out of the back of a minivan basically, and now he's on a factory team and looking to maybe go to the Motocross Nations and win. So I'm really excited for Barcia. It's cool to see him get a win. Of course, Roczen ends up 3rd in the championship, and after the 2 devastating arm injuries, it seems like he is slowly getting back to form. I really don't think he'll ever be 100% again, but the fact that he's able to finish 3rd in a championship after those injuries and make it a whole season, and at the end of the season contend for wins. Never was able to win an overall, but won a couple motos this year. Like I feel like for Roczen's sake, after being through the ringer these past few years, he's probably got to feel like this is a huge win to make it through the outdoor season healthy with a couple wins. And he'll, again, like 2 guys I just mentioned, try to carry some momentum into the Motocross of Nations with them. So yeah, I think everybody has something to hang their heads on high leaving Indiana. Complete mutter that threw a huge wrench. I mean, a lot of things could have gone wrong for Tomac, and they ended up not. So I'm sure he's, kind of breathing a sigh of relief that the mud didn't pack into the radiator and blow the bike up, or who knows what could have happened. But yeah, Tomac is your champion. One last final thought from the 450 class. Chad Reed makes his Nationals debut of the season for JGR Suzuki, and will likely have probably just raced the last National of his career, which we kind of all figured was the case a couple years ago anyway, when he pulled out of Nationals after Team 2-2 folded up. But fills in for JGR after Weston Pike has to go under the knife for some surgery on his wrist, I believe it was. And Justin Hill's still out there for them, but they like the idea of fielding 2 bikes on the track, and it sounds like that may have been a semi-audition for a potential Supercross ride for Reed in 2019, so he is on a factory team for his, again, quote-unquote, farewell tour. I would have to imagine that this is going to be Reed's final year of Supercross when he comes to race it. It sounds like that from the interviews I've seen with him that's kind of been the plan all along. He just doesn't want to do it on his own, so he's looking for some factory help. Looks like it could be a real positive thing for JGR anyway, because it, Reed's massive social following and probably one of the most liked riders in the sport right now. I mean, go to any Supercross or National and you'll hear the most cheers for him. I think that just adds a level of massive marketability for JGR Suzuki, regardless of where he finishes. And Reed will still be able to, contend for at least getting into main events. And I think if he's healthy, I really do feel like he could be a top 5 guy still on his good days. And I think that's something of value that JGR should definitely look at. But either way, other teams should look at, because he comes out this past weekend, and I know it's a mutter, and you can't really say that this is 100%. The Chad Reed is back. Freight train is all in full effect, but Reed basically rips 2 hole shots. Dylan Merriam just tips him in the first moto, but he hovers around inside of the top 3 and then eventually into the top 5. The whole moto gets a 5th, and then the second moto got another hole shot, crashed while he was in 3rd, and that kind of set him back. I think he got up while he was in 7th or 8th, and then just pretty much stayed there most of the moto. Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see Reed back out there. It's cool that anybody at 36 years old is still out there trying to compete, and I think that he should be applauded for an effort like that, coming off the couch essentially and showing up at Indiana and showing these young bucks that he still has a little bit left in the tank. It's cool to see. It's cool to see Tyler Medaglia come down from Canada, get a couple top 10 finishes as well. He rode great and kind of I would expect, mud expert anyway. It's kind of a thing that Canadians are more or less known for anyway. And then Valentin Tellier, also the French rider, shows up on a privateer 450 on a Husky, I think he was on, and finishes inside of the top 10 both motos as well. I mean, that's who would have, if you would have told me Valentin Tellier would finish top 10 both 450 motos at the last round of the year in the AMA Nationals, I would have bet heavy money against you. But that's still cool to see him out there ripping. He tried his hand at Supercross a few years ago, had a couple really big crashes, and then eventually went back to Europe. Dude's got incredible talent on a motorcycle, and yeah, Medaglia and Tellier making it a couple of quote-unquote nobodies inside of the top 10 was pretty cool to see and read, and just everybody. There's a lot of storylines from the 450 class, like I said, that kind of puts the whole 250 class at the back burner. But the 250 class also wrapped up this weekend. Of course, Plessinger wrapping up the title at Budds Creek meant that a load of pressure was off his shoulders, and he was coming into arguably his favorite round of the series anyway, semi-local to the Indiana track, and has raced the GNCCs at Indiana before, so he knows the surface, the dirt, everything. He's won at Ironman before as well. I think it was actually his first career outdoor national victory that he won was at Ironman. And no surprise, a muddy, rainy day, and Plessinger goes 1-1. I don't feel like anybody had any doubts of that. He got a couple good starts, and he didn't hole shot either moto, but he pretty quickly worked his way up into the front and kind of just cruised it out. Like I said, that's just Plessinger's forte, is big ruts all across the track, rainy day, all that stuff he just excels at, and all the pressure off his shoulders with no championship on his mind. I think that probably made him ride better anyway, and goes out on top of his 250 career. He's going to move up to 450s next year. He signed a multi-year deal alongside Barcia at Factory Yamaha, and I think that the timing of that is great. I think oftentimes these guys try a little bit too hard to get one more title out of their 250 career, and I think when you're riding as good as Plessinger is, and the momentum is flowing and your confidence is high, there's no better time to move up to the 450 class. Carmichael talks a lot about having not stayed down long enough, and maybe he's right, but he only was in the lower class for 2.5 years, where this was Plessinger's 4th year. I think the timing's right there, and I think the 450 is also going to suit him really well, so I see no problems with Plessinger moving up next year. Sounds like he's going to take number 7, so all you James Stewart fans out there, I'm so sorry, but we can finally put it to bed. I think James Stewart is going to, be on the retired list now, even though everybody wants to say that he was coming back. I really never expected it to happen, and now that the 7's gone, I don't see him coming back for any reason, unless he wants to ride a 125 two-stroke and run the 259 again, but don't see it happening, and yeah, number has to get taken eventually, so why not Plessinger taking it? But behind him, a couple Geico Hondas of RJ Hampshire and Chase Sexton round out the podium. Good seasons for them. If it wasn't for Hampshire crashing at Daytona, I think he would have had probably his best year yet. I think he would still probably call it his best year yet, winning, of course, at Budds Creek last week, and then another podium here, and ends up 4th in the championship standings overall, I believe it was. So good year for Hampshire. Sexton ends up top 10 in Grand National standings, so he's going to get a career number next year. And yeah, lots of things for those guys to smile about. And the season is now over, and now we kind of wait. The MXGP series is still going on, so I'll be, of course, paying attention to that and talking about that in my videos. But the American side is all done. The next big USA event besides the Motocross of Nations would be the Monster Cup a week after the Motocross of Nations, and I think Red Bull Straight Rhythm is 2 weeks after Monster Cup. So October basically is what we're all shooting for and looking forward to next. And then of course there's all the big off-season races outside of the United States, like the Bercy Supercross, Geneva Supercross, Australian SX Open. There's a New Zealand SX Open, couple big events that those guys are going to be going to. I think Anderson and Reed are going down south, and I think Marv and a couple other guys will also be going to France. Montreal Supercross also coming back, so lots of big off-season events still coming up, but I think we get a couple month break before all that stuff comes around, and yeah, put the 2018 season to rest. And it was a pretty exciting season, I thought, overall. Unfortunate about all the injuries we saw, but it's motocross, I guess it happens. And yeah, off season, here we come. So I appreciate you guys watching another video here on Start Your Systems. If you guys want to let me know anything about what I have said in this video, or if you want to try the track out for yourself, you can download it in the description below, or yell at me in the comments below. Whatever you want to do, that's totally fine. And yeah, we're out of here. 2018 behind us, 2019 is ahead of us. And yeah, we'll see you guys in all of our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, and I'm out of here. See ya.